Namaste. My name is Janapati Das, and we are going to be reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated and purported upon by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, my dear spiritual grandfather. I'd like to take that opportunity to offer my respects to him. My respects to you also. Thank you for tuning in constantly, making comments, sharing with your friends this wonderful book, more than a book of treaties, our life and soul, the Bhagavad Gita, Song of God. I'd like to also take an opportunity to praise and show my appreciation to my spiritual master, Jagat Guru Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa. And we are going to chant a little bit. So I offer my respectful obeisances to Kirtan, which is the prime benediction for humanity at large. Yes, you don't need to go on social media, and you don't need to go in the streets and throw bottles to benefit mankind. You don't need to get angry. You just need to chant Krishna's names and teach people about Krishna and teach them who they are. Namaste Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Purna Karuna Svarupaya Radha Krishna Hare Rama, Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthayate. I was born in the darkness, ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So, leaving off in chapter 10, the opulence of the absolute, we left off at text 18. And Arjuna is asking Krishna some deeper questions, to go deeper into spiritual life. He's saying, he recognizes him as the supreme Brahman, the ultimate supreme abode, the purifier, and the absolute truth, the eternal divine person, as he said. And he does ask questions. He wants to know more details of the divine power by which he pervades all the worlds, not just because he didn't know. He already accepted it in his opening statement, but he wanted Krishna to clarify and to specify to future civilians or people who are reading the Bhagavad Gita or wanting to know about the absolute truth, that there is no confusion about Krishna being the supreme personality of Godhead. But yet, despite it, the very clear and clarified proof in the Bhagavad Gita itself, there are still unscrupulous commentators who want to bend the truth into their concept of monism, that Krishna is a myth, Krishna is not really a real person, that the absolute truth is a impersonal void speaking through the personality Krishna, who's not really real, blah blah blah, so on. So he's saying, he's asking Krishna to elaborate, but he also to clarify how people should meditate on him and what forms Krishna comes as. And he ends it by saying, tell me about your mighty potencies and glories, because I never tire hearing your ambrosial words. It's a very fancy word, ambrosial. Ambrosial is this like aromatic or like perfume, beautiful smelling, and the words are very sweet and very, cherishable. That's the word I can think of, So Krishna, after Arjuna asks him all these series of questions and statements, we go on when Krishna answers, and that will lead us all the way to the end of chapter 10 with this answer. Text 19, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Hante Te Kata Yishyami Divahitami Vibhutaya Pradanyata Kurushteshta Nastiyanto Vistarashame. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the personality of Godhead said, Hanta, yes, Te, unto you, Kata Yisyami, I shall speak, Divaya, divine. We hear this word diva, right? Comes in as, actually, it's funny how words that used to mean things, as Kali Yuga progresses on, words take on perverted meanings when they meant something before. Divine, and a diva, somebody who was divine, coming from the word deva, which has to do with gods, or the divinity. But, you know, you think of diva as this personality, like the singer is like Aretha Franklin, or, you know, they thought of themselves as divas because they were carried themselves around like gods, and they were just, you know, assholes, really. I mean, they were great performers, but they're arrogant, false ego. But it's just that's the word divaya. He certainly atma vibhutaya, personal opulences, pradanyataha, principally kurushreshta, O best of the Kurus, na asti, there is no anta, limit, vistarasha, to the extent may. My translation: oh, the blessed Lord said, yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limited. It's said that there's a lot of references that people talk about, trying to write down the opulences and the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Seshananga, Balaram, the great, you know, the hood over Lord Vishnu's head, Shesharanga, has so many mouths that they speaking and praising the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But they know that despite, Sheshananga said that despite having so many mouths to praise and continuously praising the opulences and the glories of Shri Krishna, cannot even capture even a small amount of his mouths are not even enough, even though they're unlimited. There's not enough mouths to praise the glories and the opulences and the greatness of Krishna. That's what Bhaktivedanta Swami says here. It is not possible to comprehend the greatness of Krishna and his opulences. We would stated that the opulences of the Absolute, these, you know, beauty, strength, renunciation, wisdom, and there were so many other ones, fame. They are in full, but what that means is in full is for us is hard for us to even comprehend what that means. The senses of the individual soul are imperfect and do not permit him to understand the totality of Krishna's affairs. Let me read that again, because that's a really important point. The senses of the individual soul are imperfect and do not permit him to understand the totality of Krishna's affairs. The senses of the body are limited and faulty. And we've said this many times. The reason why empirical science is faulty and not a perfect way to try to capture the absolute truth or to try to explain things really is because of its imperfection, its limited, its faultiness. And that is one of the defects of the human beings, that the senses are imperfect. I can't see beyond the perception of where I'm sitting. I can't hear anything. I don't know what's going on in a week. You know, I can only do so much within the limits. And even if I have extensions of my senses, powerful telescopes, and they're very powerful telescopes that can see way into the universe, or into the galaxy at least. Technology and whatnot that can study things in the universe, it's still imperfect, and it has no entry into the spiritual world or the understanding of Krishna's affairs, which is why in the Krishna book, the demons were baffled by Krishna, and you know, you had I always forget of his name. There was a story of somebody who was saying he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, and he challenged. See, even my brain is imperfect. I can't think. It'll come back to me. But anyway, he was clearly an imposter, that he couldn't understand why people didn't. Some people did worship him as the absolute truth. He had followers and disciples. But still the devotees tried to understand Krishna, but on the principle that they will be able to understand Krishna fully at any specific, but not on the principle that they will be able to, okay, let me read that again because I want to make sure that's very clear. Still the devotees tried to understand Krishna, but not on the principle that they will be able to understand Krishna fully at any specific time or any state of life. Rather, the very topics of Krishna are so relishable that they appear to them as nectar. Thus, they enjoy them. In the same way that when you love somebody, you want to learn everything about them. You want to, and there are a lot of things that you will never know about your partner. Even if they're telling you a lot of things, you never really will know exactly. I mean, that's a crude example because we're talking about Krishna, but the difference is the love from which you really just want to know because you love that person. It's not because I need to know, I need to capture, like this ascending method of understanding the absolute truth. I must conquer God with my mind so I can put it in a bottle and, do whatever I want to do with it. This is I am God kind of idea that living entities come into in this world as atheists, and they want their truth to be the absolute truth, and therefore they want to be able to try to conquer the idea of God with their mental speculation, but they're not really interested in love to know about God. They just want to manipulate the idea of God or whatever. So it's a difference. So the devotees want to understand as much, they want to learn as much about Krishna. We've always said that, to read the Bhagavad Gita, to read the Srimad Bhagavatam, to hear the pastimes of Sri Krishna, to chant Krishna's holy names, to engage in the process of sadhana bhakti and bhakti yoga is rushable. It's like entering into a banquet, as our spiritual master would say, and just seeing this spread of food, and you're just like, wow, I just want to, I'm just going to take a little bit, but it's just like, that cheesecake was really good, and now I'm going to go to wow, look at there's some tofu, and that looks really good, and it just continues, you never know, but you have the desire to want to know. That's the difference. Rather, the very topics of Krishna are so relishable that they appear to them as nectar, thus they enjoy them. In discussing Krishna's opulences and his diverse energies, the pure devotee takes transcendental pleasure. This goes back, we read this verse, right? And I want to go back to that verse because it was such a beautiful verse. It was in chapter 10. I know I just jumped over it. Yeah, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss enlightening one another and conversing about me. They're just like eating the delicious prasadam of the names of Krishna, or the pastimes of Krishna, or just about Krishna. It's just like such an enjoyable pleasure. It's relishable. In discussing Krishna's opulences and his diverse energies, the pure devotees take transcendental pleasure. Therefore, they want to hear and discuss them. Krishna knows that the living entities do not understand the extent of his opulences. He therefore agrees to state only the principal manifestations of his different energies. The word pradhanayataha, principle, pradhanyata, right? Principally. Is very important because we can understand only a few of the principal details of the Supreme Lord, for his features are unlimited. It is not possible to understand them all. And vibhuti, as used in this verse, refers to the opulences by which he controls the whole manifestation. In Amara Kosha dictionary, it is stated that vibhuti indicates an exceptional opulence. Who can know, if you were able to understand Krishna in whole, you would be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But our abilities are so limited. Even as devotees of Krishna, we are, and that's fine, The impersonalist or the pantheist cannot understand the exceptional opulences of the Supreme Lord, nor the manifestations of his divine energy. Both in the material world and in the spiritual world, his energies are distributed in a variety of manifestation. Now Krishna is describing what can be directly perceived by the common man. Thus, part of his variegated energy is described in this way. We can only imagine, even just by reading these things, the kinds of amazing, inconceivable opulences and powers and potencies that Krishna has to be able to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's almost laughable, really, when you can understand that even from if someone is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, you should be able to understand that they are going to have inconceivable opulences and powers that we don't have, we can't even imagine. We can't even wrap our brain around how that's possible. So the atheist, being envious, just like, it doesn't exist. There's nobody like that. I'm not like that. So how can anybody else be like that? This is the stupidity. This is why they're called mujas. They're foolish, the most foolish, grossly foolish miscreants. Text 20. Aham matma guda kisha sarvabhuta shayastita aham madishcha madhyam cha bhutanamanta eva cha. It's really nice to, when you learn about the Sanskrit, you start to see the repeating of words. Aham, I am, right? Aham brahmasmi, right? I am spiritual in essence, right? So aham, I am. Atma, soul. Gudakesha, O Arjuna, another one name of Krishna, of Arjuna. Sarvabhuta, that's a word, that's all living entities. We've heard that before. Ashaya shtitaha, situated within. Shtitaha, situated, right? Aham, I. Adi, right? The original. Cha, also. Madhyam, middle. We've heard this in the refers to Madhyamakarya, Madhyama-adhikarya, right? And Uttama-adhikarya, different Kanista-adhikarya, right? Different levels of devotees. Madhyam is middle. Cha, also. Bhutanam, all living entities. Antaha, end. Eva, certainly. Cha, end. I am the self, O Gudakesha, seated in the hearts of all creatures. This is our Krishna talking. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Which sounds very, very, very familiar to, like, I am the Alpha, the Omega. I don't know if they do a middle, but I'm the Alpha and the Omega. I think it's said in the Bible. Beginning, the middle, and end of all beings, right? In this verse, so Adi Madhyam Anta. I'm just trying to think. There's also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the verse, Arjuna is addressed as Gudakesha, which means one who has conquered the darkness of sleep. For those who are sleeping in the darkness of ignorance, it is not possible to understand how the Supreme Godhead manifests himself in the material and spiritual worlds. So this is a very good acacia. It's very, very interesting point that there's references to different prayers. We say, I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge, right? So here Krishna, as the spiritual master, is enlightening Arjuna, who has conquered the darkness of sleep by listening to his spiritual master, by following the instructions, by understanding the absolute truth. For those who are sleeping in the darkness of ignorance, it is not possible to understand how the Supreme Godhead manifests himself in the material and spiritual worlds. Thus, this address by Krishna to Arjuna is significant because Arjuna is above such darkness. The personality of Godhead agrees to describe his various opulences. Once again, Krishna is continuously allowing his devotee asks him things, and because he's not envious, Krishna continuously reveals this. This is a very important point for the devotee that follows the instruction of the spiritual master and is pleasing to the spiritual master. Krishna first informs Arjuna that he is the self or soul of the entire cosmic manifestation. Krishna is, not Arjuna. By dint of his primary expansion, before the material creation, the Supreme Lord, by his plenary expansion, accepts the Purusha incarnations, and from him everything begins. Therefore, he is Atma, the soul of the Mahatattva, the universal elements. The total material energy is not the cause of the creation, but actually the Mahavishnu enters into the Mahatattva, the total material energy. He is the soul. When Mahavishnu enters into the material universes, he again manifests himself as the supersoul in each and every living entity. We have experienced that the personal body of the living entity exists due to the presence of the spiritual spark. Without the existence of the spiritual spark, the body cannot develop. Similarly, the material manifestation cannot develop unless the Supreme Soul of Krishna enters. The Supreme Personality of God is existing as Supersoul in all manifested universes. A description of the three Purusha avatars is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests three features as Karanadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and Kashirodakshay Vishnu in this material manifestation. The Supreme Lord Krishna, the cause of all causes, lies down in the cosmic ocean as Mahavishnu or Karanadakshay Vishnu, and therefore Krishna is the beginning of this universe, the maintainer of the universal manifestation, and the end of all the energy. Amazing. So details, we see in the same way that certain kinds of maths, like pre-algebra or arithmetic, is inherent in things like calculus, but calculus is not inherent in arithmetic. So similarly, we have books of religions like the Bible and the Quran and whatnot that are good, but they leave out a lot of detail because of the consciousness of the people that they were addressed to. The Vedic principles are for more elevated personalities who want to know more detail about that. This is the primary energies that Krishna is showing. But when you go back here in Bhaktivedanta, Swami Prabhupada is saying, for those who are sleeping in the darkness of ignorance, it is not possible to understand how the Supreme Lord manifests himself in the material and spiritual worlds. They need very simple things. Lord Jesus Christ came, he taught things that were in parables to try to get people to a higher truth. The people of Moses were in a particular consciousness, so they had lots of rules and regulations to elevate their consciousness. The Prophet Muhammad was given specific kinds of things that were in the modes for people in the modes of ignorance and passion. Even the Vedas, a lot of the Vedas are dealing with people people who are more in the mode of ignorance or mode of passion, or maybe some in the mode of goodness. But there's a lot of middle ground. It's not just black or white. There's a lot of things, but it is very clear. The absolute truth, the absolute point is Krishna, and that is the goal. That is where everybody is going towards, and that's the main important point. So text 21. Adityanam Maham Vishnur Jyotisham Raviram Shuman Marichir Marutam Ashmi Nakshatranam Aham Shashi Adityanam of the Jitas. Aham, I am. Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. Jyotisham, of all luminaries. Ravi, the sun. Shuman, radiant. Nice word, Shuman. Marichi, Marutam, of the Marutas. Asmi, I am. Shatranam, of stars. Aham, I am. Shashi, the moon. Of the Ajitas, I am Vishnu. Of the lights, I am the radiant sun. I am Marichi, of the Maruts. And among the stars, I am the moon. There are 12 Aditas, of which Krishna is the principal. And among all the luminaries, twinklings in the sky, the sun is the chief. And in the Brahma Samhita, the sun is accepted as a glowing effulgence of the Supreme Lord. And it is considered to be one of his eyes. Marichi is the controlling deity of the heavenly spaces. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. Text 22. Vedanam samavedosmi devanam ashmi vasavaha indriyanam manaschashmi bhutanam ashmi chetana. Vedanam, of all the Vedas. Samaveda, the Samaveda. Ashmi, I am. Devanam, of all the demigods. Ashmi, I am. Vashavaha, heavenly king. Indriyanam, of all the senses. Manaha, the mind. Cha, also. Ashmi, I am. Bhutanam, of all living entities. Ashmi, I am. Chetana, the living force. Of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda, and of the demigods, I am Indra. Of the senses, I am the mind, and in living beings, I am the living force, knowledge. Purport: the difference between matter and spirit is that matter has no consciousness like the living entity. Therefore, this consciousness is supreme and eternal. Consciousness cannot be produced by a combination of matter. So this is what's understood, is that consciousness comes from the presence of the living entity, and ultimately from the presence of Krishna within the material world. When consciousness is present within the body or in matter, it lends the consciousness to the body so that it's so close that everything appears that the body is just automatically doing things by itself. But it's only because of the presence of the living entity. When the living entity is ready to leave the body is no longer capable to keep the living entity there. The living entity leaves and the body falls apart. But it's staying present. Even when it's getting older and falling apart, it's still staying present, it's still staying active, right? But when the living entity leaves, the matter is no longer. So it's not matter that has anything to do with consciousness. And it was kind of funny because, I was in the store and I was selling some, thing for my job, selling supplements. And the Chinese lady, Asian lady came in. She had like this little divining thing on a string and it was like, she would put it over things, and tell whether or not she should take it for her body, right? This is very prominent feng shui in Asian cultures, right? So, and she said, I said, well, what do you do with that? Just to get some of the information, just because I wanted to know. And she was saying, well, it's the spirit that, you know, leads you. And she says, I have a spirit in me and you have a spirit in you. And I almost wanted to say, well, if I have a spirit in me, who am I? You know, because it's like, so it's a misconception that somehow or another the spirit is something separate from ourselves, that we are really the body and that the spirit is something that we have. But it's not. It's the other way around. We have a body, we are the spirit. Continuing on, text 23. Rujanam Shankarash Chashmi Vitesho Yaksha Rakshasham Vashunam Bhavakash Chashmi Meru Shikar Namaham Rudranam of all the Rudras, Shankara, Lord Shiva, Cha also, Asmi I am, Vitesha, the Lord of the treasury, Yaksha Rakshasham, of the Yakshas and Rakshashas, Vashunam of the Vasus, Pava Kaha, fire, Cha also, Asmi I am, Meru, Shikarinam of all mountains, Aham I am. I love these comparisons. Of the Rudras I am Lord Shiva, and of the Yakshas and Rakshasas I am the Lord of wealth, Kuvera. Of the Vasus I am fire, Agni, and of the mountains I am Meru. So we have, you know, without getting so much, because this is, the Vedic culture is very, very complex, and you can learn a lot of this stuff actually also from the Mahabharata and Ramayana, when there's references to things like Yakshas and Rakshasas and Rudra, what's a Rudra, and, you know, it's like the Vasu, the classifications of people in these particular classifications, like demons and the mountains, right? I am Meru, Mount Meru. There are 11 Rudras, of whom Shankara, Lord Shiva, is prominent. He is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord in charge of the modes of ignorance in the universe. Among the demigods, Kuvera is the chief treasurer, and he is the representation of the Supreme Lord. Meru is a mountain famed for its rich natural resources. Text 24. Puru dasham cha mukyam mam vidi parta briyash patim senaninam aham skandaha sarlasham ashmi shagaraha purodasham of all priests, cha also, mukyam chief, mam me, vidi understand, parta osana prita, brihashpati, senaninam of all commanders, aham I am, skanda karchikeya, Sarasham of the reservoirs of water, Ashmi I am, Shikaraha the ocean. A priest, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief, Brihashpati, the Lord of devotion. So the Brahmana, the priest, sage of the demigods, is Brihashpati, referenced a lot of times in different stories. Of generals, I am Skanda, the Lord of war, and the bodies, I am the ocean. Indra is the chief demigod in the heavenly planets and is known as the king of heavens. That planet in which he reigns is called Indraloka. Brihashpati is Indra's priest, and since Indra is the chief of all kings, Brihashpati is the chief of all priests. And as Indra is the chief of all kings, similarly Skanda, the son of Parvati, and Lord Shiva, the chief of military commanders. So that is Kartikeya, one of the sons of Lord Shiva. In all the bodies of water, the ocean is the greatest. These representations of Krishna only give it hints of his greatness. Text 25. Maharshinam burguraham griram ashmiyakam aksharam yajnanam japaj yajnoshmi statavaranam himalaya Maharshinam among the great sages. Brigu. Aham, I am. Giram of vibrations. Ashmi, I am. Ekam aksharam pranava. Yajnanam of sacrifices. Japa yajna, chanting. Ashmi, I am. Stata varanam of immovable things. Himalaya, the Himalayan mountains. Of the great sages, I am Brigu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. So there we go again. Krishna reiterating the point that the Omkara, the Pranava, the sound of Krishna representation, it emanates from Krishna's body. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy name Japa. And of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Very big mountain range. Brahma, the first living creature within the universe, created several sons for the propagation of various kinds of species. The most powerful of his sons is Brigu, who is also the greatest sage. Of all the transcendental vibrations, the Omkara, represents the supreme. Of all the sacrifices, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, is the purest representation of Krishna. Sometimes animal sacrifices are recommended, but in the sacrifice of Hare Krishna, there is no question of violence. It is the simplest and the purest. Whatever is the sublime in the world is the representation of Krishna. Therefore, the Himalayas, the greatest mountains in the world, also represent him. The mountain named Meru was mentioned in a previous verse, but Meru is sometimes movable. Yes, we have a story of that actually in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Whereas the Himalayas are never movable. Thus, the Himalayas are greater than Meru. And this is really what I just had this realization that the sacrifice of chanting Hare Krishna, chanting the Maha Mantra, chanting Krishna's names, there's no violence. And it makes me think about, oftentimes people create sacrifices to try to achieve some kind of result. You know, there are people committing sacrifices by protesting and doing violent things against police or whatever. And it is a sacrifice because they have to go out and they have to put themselves in danger and build up their reputation or whatever for their cause, whatever the cause might be, that they might see something that's wrong, that's going on. But you can achieve a greater benefit by engaging in the sacrifice prescribed by Lord Chaitanya as the highest and most beneficial sacrifice of this age, which is Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama. Eva Kevalam Kaloa Nesteva Nesteva Gatyanyata. The chanting of Krishna's names is the prime benediction for humanity at large. There's no violence within it, and it achieves everything that is really necessary and needed in not only as an individual spiritual progress, but the progress of a society. And also the chanting, if everyone were to engage in the chanting of Krishna's names, it wouldn't be a perfect world because it's a temporary world, but it would be much more peaceful and much more livable than it is right now. We could actually live in peace. We could live in equality. We could live equally, serving under Krishna together as one brotherhood and sisterhood. So that was just something that I realized, that the greatest sacrifice is the chanting of Krishna's names. Even though there are so many sacrifices, many of them are in different modes of passion and ignorance, and they all try to achieve something, but they will not achieve Krishna. They will not achieve any really beneficial result. I think what we're going to do is we're going to end there at 25. And I realized I used to actually end by chanting a little bit, and I want to start doing that. For some reason, I don't know why, I've been doing for a while where I just stopped. So I'm just going to go ahead and chant Krishna's name just for a few minutes, and then we'll call it an evening. Thank you very much. See you next time.